Hey, what's going on, wrestling fans? My name is Bryan Crazy. You're watching my brand, that from brand of wrestling and entertainment here on YouTube.com and the World Wide Web. Since 2010, proudly providing you with the wrestling news, reviews, rumors, insights that you're accustomed to. And I have to apologize in advance for my voice due to a condition I had over the last few weeks known as pleurisy. One of the side effects was losing my voice. Slowly but surely, it's coming back, but I will apologize in advance, and it's just unfortunately something I cannot control. But you saw the title of this video, and I am back with my WWE Raw review and results for June 17, 2013. We start off the show with Alberto Del Rio. He comes out and cuts a very heelish promo. Says that he feels betrayed by the fans, and also mentions in this promo that he feels like he is the best. This brings out CM Punk and Paul Heyman. And CM Punk has some words for Alberto Del Rio and basically wants to square off against him. This is where Paul Heyman ends up interjecting, saying CM Punk does not work for free, this, that, or the other. And CM Punk clearly made it known last night after the Payback pay-per-view in a short little video segment that was posted online that he did not want Paul Heyman to be his mouthpiece any longer. You know, going into Payback, it was the first time that Paul Heyman ever referred to CM Punk as his client. And CM Punk only wants Paul Heyman to be his friend and nothing more than that. And basically, he shut Paul Heyman down and went on to say that he will face Alberto Del Rio tonight on Raw, and this was a really good segment. Then we go backstage. We go into a segment with Paul Heyman and CM Punk, and CM Punk is basically saying, you know what, Paul, I need to do this on my own. I don't need you by my side tonight, and quite frankly, I don't want you out at ringside at all for any future matches. Last night at the Payback pay-per-view, Paul Heyman trying to help CM Punk almost inadvertently cost him that match. Then we go into the first official match on Monday Night Raw. Wade Barrett, the former Intercontinental Champion who lost the belt last night at the Payback pay-per-view, squared off against the returning Christian. That's right, guys. Captain Charisma himself returned to the WWE. It was a short little match, but it was good, and he ended up picking up the win with the kill switch. Then we go into a 2-on-1 handicap match, Rhodes and Sandow versus Sheamus, and they absolutely were getting their ass kicked by Sheamus. Sheamus was absolutely dominant in this match, and out of nowhere, Damien Sandow ends up hitting a roll-up. Last night on the Payback pre-show, Damien Sandow ended up falling victim to Sheamus. Sheamus picked up the win over him, and Sheamus looked really dominant. So tonight, it made sense. They wanted the face to look dominant. They wanted the heels to look like they had to win by any means necessary. That's what heels do. So I understand why they did this the way they did it. Sandow capitalized. He won by that quick roll-up, as I previously mentioned. And then post-match, Cody Rhodes ends up still in the ring. Damien Sandow's already hightailed it up the ramp, and he ends up receiving a bro kick from Sheamus. Then we go into a backstage segment with Triple H, Vicky, and Brad Maddox. And throughout the night, basically all the different members of the McMahon family are, you know, either messing with Vicky or trying to pull her in a different direction. I mean, it just made some really good television. Every McMahon wants something a little bit different out of Vicky Guerrero. They see the future of WWE. They see the current product just being a little bit different with their own unique spin and twist on it. And like I said, made for some pretty interesting television. The power struggle that's currently going on backstage within WWE between the three McMahons, the managing supervisor, and Brad Maddox. Then we go into a backstage segment with Kane and Daniel Bryan. And then we go back to the ring. The fans voted earlier on for the stipulation for the Randy Orton versus Daniel Bryan match, and Jerry Lawler is in the ring. He announces that the fans voted for a no disqualification stipulation, and Orton versus Bryan begins. This is a great match. A lot of back and forth action. During this match, Randy Orton ends up sidestepping. Daniel Bryan ends up going smack right into the barrier. He ends up suffering what is known as a stinger. That's basically when your neck ends up getting compressed. It makes you feel really, really odd. That's basically your spinal cord is being compressed. And I've had a very similar accident in the past, and I know exactly how that feels. So I really feel for Daniel Bryan. They went on to say later on in the night that he is all right to compete. He will compete on this Friday night on SmackDown against Dean Ambrose, which will be taped tomorrow night, Tuesday. So the injury couldn't have been too bad, but I really hope Daniel Bryan is okay. This is not a work. This isn't part of the storyline. They did try to work it into the storyline, saying that Daniel Bryan was so disappointed that he couldn't continue the match. And you could even see that during the match. The trainer really wanted him to stop, and he got back into the ring against the doctor's advice. This was a really, really good match, and Orton did something really classy in the post-match. He goes over to Daniel Bryan, helps him up, gives him a good hug, and ends up walking up with him up the ramp. Then we go into segment in the ring. AJ Lee comes out, and she begins to cut a very, very heelish promo, talks about Caitlyn, talks about the Divas title, says there's no competition in the back, challenges any of the females, any of the Divas in the back to come out, and someone comes out, but it's not the person she expected. It's Stephanie McMahon, and this was a great exchange between these two. Caitlyn ends up interrupting, and Stephanie says a real classic line here. I'm, going to give you a free pass this time for, what you've been through, but don't ever interrupt me again, and she puts all the Divas on notice. For the first time in a long time, really, Stephanie, Triple H, and Vince are really asserting themselves backstage in WWE. But this is a trend we've seen, many times over the years. After WrestleMania, the ratings start to dip, and the McMahons come back on television. It happened in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and now it's happening in 2013. Not that I dislike it, but it's just a trend that we're seeing year after year. It's a trend that I hope to continue. I was fortunate enough to get to see Vince McMahon live just a few weeks ago when Raw was in Hartford, Connecticut, and it was definitely a mark-out moment to get to see the founder of the modern-day WWE. So this segment ends up with Caitlyn and AJ brawling in the ring, and Big Urkel, Big E Langston himself, ends up carrying AJ off, kicking and screaming. To be perfectly honest, Caitlyn's titties almost popped out of her shirt. I wouldn't mind to see it. But it's just a great segment between these two. Then we go into Kane versus Dean Ambrose. Kane ends up winning this match by disqualification after the Hounds of Justice just end up capitalizing. They end up using the numbers game. They attack Kane. Post-match, Kane gets hit by the spear, and then he was a recipient of a triple powerbomb from the Shield. Then we go into a backstage segment with the Shield, Vince and Vicky, and you find out a little bit later on tonight, Triple H gave orders for the Shield to be absolutely decimated and dominated. And Triple H is praising the Shield, says he loves the Shield. They show ruthless aggression, and it's exactly what he wants to see. And just more of an example of how there's so much conflict backstage with all these different people trying to vie for control of the WWE at this point in time. Then we go into a promo with Zeb Coulter. He comes out and he announces that him and Jack Swagger have made an alliance with a new superstar. A few weeks ago, if you guys remember, Zeb Coulter was out on WWE television. He was guest commentating during a match involving Antonio Cesaro, and that's the man who came out, Antonio Cesaro. He ends up doing the hand over the heart. He does the We the People. He does that before the match. He does that post-match after he defeats Sin Cara. Ends up putting the Don't Tread on Me flag on top of Sin Cara. And I really like that, Antonio Cesaro really has had, mixed success in WWE. Yes, he held the United States title for quite some time, but his gimmick has rapidly changed, and it seems like every week his gimmick, became less and less and less and less, and all the things that made Cesaro so cool, they were taking away from him. Like, first, he had Oksana. Did he really need Oksana? No, but it was just a nice bonus. Then he spoke the 5 languages, did the entrances. They took that away from him. Then he had the cool jacket with the waving of the flag and the whole gimmick, I love America, but I hate the people that live in it. And I love what America once stood for. And I think tying that gimmick into the Jack Swagger Zeb Coulter thing makes a lot of sense. Michael Cole definitely took huge offense to this, and you know what? He played his role perfectly tonight. Usually I find Michael Cole a little bland. He's become a little textbook. He just, constantly is regurgitating the same thing week after week. And that's what happens when you've been doing the same job for, at least back to 1998, if not earlier, so 15 years. Like I said, it's not that I dislike Michael Cole, but I really like tonight how he just was way more passionate, way more into what he was saying, and if we could see this, on a weekly basis, it'll really add something to the commentary team. We already have JBL, which is a commentary genius. I mean, I don't know how half the stuff he says gets by, McMahon working in the gorilla position, but somehow JBL gets away with it, and he seems to not have too much of a filter, and, I love it. I absolutely love it. No complaints from this wrestling fan there. So we end up seeing Cesaro square off, I previously mentioned Cesaro squared off against Sin Cara. Sin Cara actually ended up facing Curtis Axel later in the night, who did pick up the win over him, but Cesaro squared off against William Regal. Regal was strong right out of the opener, but Cesaro ended up picking up the win with the neutralizer. Like I previously mentioned, then he laid the flag, did the whole We the People with the heart over the hand on the chest over the heart. Excuse me, guys, my throat was so dry I'm choking up on my own words. And that was the end of that segment. So then we see John Cena come out. He cuts a promo, and John Cena seems more convicted, more convinced, more dedicated than he has in so long. This is part of the redemption storyline. And then we see Mark Henry come out. There's been a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors. He even announced on Twitter last night with a real cryptic tweet, and then today that he may be retiring, or he was in fact retiring. And I correctly speculated earlier on that this quite possibly could be a work. He's a heel. He's going to get the fans emotionally invested and then rip the rug out from underneath them. That's what heels do. And you know what? He played the part to a T. He had Cena stay. He was holding Cena's title after Cena handed it to him. He ends up handing it back to him. When he was cutting this promo, I don't know if you guys noticed this. For the guys that were fortunate enough and did see the show, he threw a little jab at Cena, and then right as you think Mark Henry's going to retire, bam, hits the world's strongest slam and says, the one thing he's never had is the WWE title, and he's challenging John Cena, and he's coming for him. Absolutely love how this segment came off. Monday Night Raw was just incredible so far, and the best is still yet to come, guys. That's the amazing part about this. Then we go into Jericho versus Slater. Jericho picks up the win over Heath Slater, and then post-match, three-man band tries to play the numbers game. They try to capitalize, they try to attack Chris Jericho, and Chris Jericho makes quick work of the three-man band. And I really have to say, going back months, I really questioned three-man band. Is it a hit or a miss? Is this a good idea? And I understand that they need enhancement talent. They need talent that's going to put over other talent. Basically, I hate the term, but jobbers. There's no better way to say it. And, the reason I hate the term is because, a jobber denotes that, so just something a term that I don't like to use. I believe the guys are going out there and doing their job. You know what I mean? They're paid very well to go out there and do basically what they're told to do. It's a business, and at the end of the day, the buck has to stop somewhere, and it stops at Vince McMahon, to be perfectly honest. If you are in the business world, if you're old enough to be working, the fans of the show, that, the buck stops at your boss, and you need to respect your boss, and you need to follow your boss's orders, or you'll quickly find yourself without a job. That's basically how it works in this world. Then we go into Curtis Axel versus Cara. This is a non-title match. Curtis Axel picked up the Intercontinental Championship last night at the Payback pay-per-view. A great moment post-match when he held that title, looked up at the sky. It was Father's Day, and now he holds the same title that his late great father, Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig, did. Curtis Axel made quick work of Sin Cara, defeated him with a DDT in this non-title match. Previously, going back maybe 3 weeks, a month ago, Sin Cara won a match at Main Event, and he was announced that he was going to be the number one contender for the IC title in the future. I don't know if WWE has completely dropped the ball with that, or we're going to see a continuing program with Curtis Axel and Sin Cara. Then we see Paul Heyman and CM Punk backstage, and this is almost, once you saw the finish of the show, you look back, this is almost like the Godfather saying bye to one of his favorite sons. I always loved you, but this is just what I have to do. And this was a great segment, and I absolutely loved how this came off. And then we go into the main event, Alberto Del Rio versus CM Punk, and the role reversal, between all these characters, between Ziggler and Del Rio and Punk and Heyman. In 24 hours, the landscape of the WWE has changed so much, and this was a great match. A lot of back and forth action. Del Rio was absolutely vicious, focusing on the skull once again of the superstar he was facing in the match tonight, like he did in the match against Dolph Ziggler last night. And you know what? Funny enough, Dolph Ziggler shows up. Wasn't medically cleared, wasn't expected to be there in the storyline. He shows up. He's vicious. He absolutely attacks Del Rio. He's, thwarting away Ricardo as well. Del Rio goes running to the backstage, and CM Punk's just like, He ends up being announced as the winner, which I would think, with Ziggler attacking Del Rio, wouldn't that have caused a disqualification? Del Rio would have been the winner, but I guess Punk won by countout. That was the one thing, throughout the night that really didn't make sense to me. But besides that point, we get CM Punk standing in the ring. A few minutes of Monday Night Raw, because, on the East Coast, I guess wherever you are, Monday Night Raw goes off at 11:07 here. And typically that is. Sometimes it runs over, sometimes it goes off a few minutes earlier, but typically it's about 11:07. So, when you got a match starting, at 10:50, you got 17 minutes of Raw left, this, that, or the other, just to, prove that point, or make the point, or tell you guys the point, or whatever it may be. Now, we get the biggest moment of the night, guys. Absolutely blew me away. I thought this was something we're going to have to wait for SummerSlam, maybe WrestleMania next year, but we get the beginning of the Brock Lesnar CM Punk feud, and that's what I meant. It was almost like Paul Heyman being the Godfather. Like, I always loved you, but this is something I have to do. And I don't know if he was sent by Paul Heyman. I don't know if Brock Lesnar did this on his own initiative. I don't know if this is just something he felt like he needed to do. Like, man, this guy Punk just basically spit in the face of Paul Heyman. But I remember once upon a time, Brock Lesnar split up from Paul Heyman as well. So I don't know what's his motivation, why he did this. I almost feel like he was sent by Paul Heyman, though, and I want to know your guys' thoughts. I want to know your guys' feedback, and I want you to drop it below. But Monday Night Raw finished with Brock Lesnar delivering an earth-shattering F5 to the former WWE Champion CM Punk, the longest reigning champion of the modern era, 434 days. And guys, as you could tell, absolutely phenomenal Monday Night Raw. They really continued the momentum from last night's Payback pay-per-view, and I can't wait to see what happens this Friday night on SmackDown, this Wednesday night on Main Event, and next week on the WWE shows as well. For the F and brand, my name is Brian Crazy. I thank you for watching from the bottom of my heart. I could not do this without you, and I hope you guys have a great night.